Alright, hello guys. This tutorial is going to be how to make a leaderboard in Roblox. It's actually super simple. I can show you how to do it in a couple minutes, and if I don't show you how to do it in a couple minutes, then I will go ahead and sell this hat for $1. Mark my words. So let's get started. We're going to go here, enter into server script service. This is assuming that you know how to use Roblox Studio, the basics of it at least. In your Explorer tab, we're going to open up server script service, and we're going to add a new script. We'll just name this script leaderboard. This isn't mandatory, you can name it whatever you want, but just name it something that makes sense. And we're going to go ahead and start by identifying the player service. We're going to actually create a variable for the player service. So we're going to do get service players. So now we're going to enter the player service, and we are going to use the player added. We're going to use the player added event. So this will tell our script to fire whatever we put in below it every time the player joins. So let's see what we can do with this to create a leaderboard. So we have this player added function, and whatever we put in below here inside this block of code, it's gonna activate this code every time a new player joins. So what if we want to give the player something specific, like let's say we want to give him a leaderboards folder, and we want to also give him let's say we want him to start out with 0 gold. So we actually have to tell Roblox what player we're actually editing. So this will just trigger every time a player joins, but if we want to specifically tell Roblox we want to target this player, we have to add in the parameter. So in this case, this event, player added, it asks for the parameter that it actually sends you back is the player itself that was added. So if I join the game, then the player that was added is Sealoaf, me. But in this case, we're going to use the parameter player because we know that multiple people can join the game, so we don't want to hard specify somebody. So now we're going to go ahead and create a new instance. We'll name it leaderstats. And it's going to be a folder. So what this does, we're creating a new variable, we're naming it leaderstats, and we're creating a new instance, and this instance is going to be a folder. So here we specified that it's a folder. But if you wanted to, you could create a new part. Oh gosh. But in this case, if you want to make a leaderboard for your game, you have to make something called leaderstats, and you have to make it a folder. So the next thing we're going to do is, so we've created a variable that is now associated with this new instance that's a folder, but we actually haven't named the folder anything. So right now that folder is just going to be named folder. So we're going to set the name of the folder so that Roblox knows what we're trying to do. We're going to do leaderstats.name, and we're going to set that equal to leaderstats. Now Roblox will take a folder that's named leaderstats. It'll do something specific with that, and you'll be able to see. It also depends on where this leaderstats folder is. So we're going to set the leaderstats parent folder to the player. So now you might be asking, how does Roblox know what player to put this leaderstats folder in? Well, if we go back to the parameter that we're setting, we know that every time a player joins, it's going to take in that player, and we've defined that player as this variable player. And now we're saying create this leaderstats folder and put it inside of this player. That's essentially what's happening here. So I'm just trying to break it down as we go. And now that we've created a folder, let's actually see what that does for us. So I'm going to go ahead and click play. We've got no errors in the output, which is great. Let's go ahead and click on players, Kidfly, and now we see that we have a leaderstats folder. This wasn't here before, we actually just created this. So now let's see what we can do inside of this leaderstats folder. So in the leaderstats folder, we now want to make some sort of value to this leader stat. So it could be a kills value, a money value, a gold value. In this case, we're going to do gold. So the same way that we created a folder, we're going to create a new instance. I'm just going to name the variable for this instance gold. And we are going to say int value. And this is just going to create a new integer value, which is a number. We're going to do the same thing where we set the name of this int value. We're going to set the name to let's just name it gold and keep it simple. Name it gold with a capital G. And now we have to, something that we didn't do with the leader stats folder. All we really had to do with the leader stats folder is create the folder, name it, and then set its parent so that Roblox knows where this leader stats folder is going to live. With this gold value, we also need to set an actual value so that when the player joins, do we want him to start out with 0 gold? Do we want him to start out with 100? So in this case, we're going to be a little bit generous and we're going to give the player 100 gold as soon as they start. So we're going to do gold.value is equal to 100. Simple as that. And the final thing we're going to do is we're going to parent the gold into the leader stats folder that we created up here. So we're going to refer to the leader stats folder. We're going to say gold.parent is equal to leader stats. And because we worked with leader stats up here in this scope, it's going to know exactly what leader stats is when I tell it to parent gold there. So let's go ahead and see what happens now if we click play. And you can see, look at that, up here on the right, I now have 100 gold. So I'm not rich yet. If we actually go into the player service, we can see in the leader stats, you can see this gold int value right here. And we can actually adjust the value however we like. I could set it to 1,000, or I could set it to 1 million. And we can see it actually took the M there. That's pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and click stop. So that's pretty much how you create a leaderboard. But I know that you probably want to do something with that leaderboard. You know, you don't want to just stare at a number that stays the same and doesn't switch ever. So I'm going to teach you really quick how to make a coin that every time you touch the coin, it'll actually increase your gold by 1. So we'll do this real quick. I'm not going to go ahead and make the coin super pretty. I think that's a 3D modeler's job. I'm just going to show you the functionality and the script involved in making a part that when you touch it, it gives you a coin. So let's scale this up just to help us visualize kind of like a coin. And you know what? I'll do a little bit of 3D modeling there. I'll make it gold. How's that? So we're going to make sure that this coin, this ugly coin, is anchored so that it doesn't fly anywhere or go under the map. We're going to make sure it can collide. So actually, we're going to turn can collide off so that we can go through the coin. So now we've got this. If we click play, we've got this coin here that I can walk through. Awesome. But it doesn't give me an extra gold. So now I'm going to show you the functionality, how you can make a quick script so that this coin can actually give us a gold every time we touch it. And you can actually use this to make a simple obby. You know, you can make a little obstacle course with coins and make a simple game out of that. So let's go ahead and see how we do this. So we're going to find the part in our workspace. It's right here. And first, to make it simple, I'm actually just going to name it coin as that. And we're going to go ahead and insert a script inside of coin. And we'll name it add value. Add value. You can name it whatever you want. Again, whatever makes sense. So the first thing that we're going to want to do, we're going to want to refer to this coin. Because right now we just have a script and it is inside of the coin, but the script doesn't actually know what we're trying to do yet. So we need to refer to this coin. And a simple way that we can do that is just using the parent-child structure. So we can say local, create a new variable, name it coin. And we can say it's equal to, we could do game.workspace.coin, But a simpler pathing, because this script is inside of the coin, a simpler pathing we could actually do is say script, which will refer to the script that we're currently in, and then we're going to say dot parent, and that'll do the same exact thing. Now we can put this script in any coin, and because it's referring to the parent, the script knows exactly what coin it's trying to control. So now we want to use something called the touched event, because we want the player's coins to increment by 1 every time the player touches it. So the way that we do that is, now that we've referred to the coin, we're going to say coin dot touched, and you can see the little symbol there for it's signaling an event, and it actually gives you a description here. Fires when a part touches another part as a result of physical movement. So a little bit of a nerdy response there, but basically if you're touching it, it's gonna fire. So coin.touched, and then, you know, every time we use an event, we go with a colon, connect. We're gonna do function, open and close parentheses. And the same way that we had this leaderboards function, there's always gonna be a parameter, or not always, but parameters are a very powerful thing, and for the most part, functions utilize parameters. In this case, in the player added function, we know that it's going to return the actual player that joined the game. In this case, when the coin is touched, this touched event is going to return what the other part was that touched the coin. So a lot of people like to type in hit here, but personally for me, I like to type in what my brain sees as like, okay, this is what I'm actually talking about. This is the context. So in my case, I like to use other part, because this is the other part that touched the coin. So for now, let's just look at this logically. We're just going to print the other part. So we're not incrementing the coins yet, but we need to understand what exactly is touching the coin when the player goes through the coin. So let's click play. And we're going to make sure to have our output open here. And I'm going to touch the coin. Wow. Okay. A lot of parts are touching the coin right now. We can see it's pretty much my entire body, my right lower arm, my right hand, my handle. So it's a lot of information that we really don't need. But something that's cool about this is that we can actually use one of these parts to identify what player owns this part, and then we can give that player a coin. So let's see how we do that. Let's press stop and go back to our add value script. We're going to remove this print statement because we understand what this touched event is returning. And we are going to first find the player that touched the coin. So actually, let's start by finding the character. We know that there's a player instance. Whenever a player joins a game, there's a player instance, and there's also a character instance that exists in the workspace that makes up the character's model. So let's find the character first. So again, if we click play and we look into the workspace, we see our character right here. We can see that all of these parts that were touching the coin before, they exist inside of my character. So we can use the parent structure to actually say, whenever one of these limbs are touched, find the parent of this limb, which would be my character, and then boom, you have the character that touched the coin. So now you can give this script context as to who touched the coin. So let's see how that's done. Let's go ahead and create a variable to refer to our character. And we're going to set that equal to the other part that was touched, which would be, let's say, like our left leg. And we're going to say dot parent. So it's going to find our left leg or whatever part was touched, go to the parent, find our character. And now we've set that as character. So now we need to actually get the player, because the player is where the coins exist. So we need to somehow get the player from the character. And there's a couple ways you can do this, but the simplest way is to use this function called getPlayerFromCharacter. And the way that this is written is we actually want to refer to the players service. Let me just copy and paste this from the other script. So players is equal to game get service players. So we're going to do players now. Now we're going to connect it to this function, get player from character. So what this does is this grabs the player from a character that we specify. And we know that we specified the character up here, so that's what we're gonna feed into this parameter. So we're gonna say character, and now it's going to be able to grab the player. Now we can access the player based on whoever touched the part. So we know that when we are in the game here in players, we go to player, leader stats, and then this is where that integer value we created, gold, exists. So we want to increment that by 1. So we're going to say, let's create a variable for gold so that we can make it easier. So gold is going to be equal to the player, and we're going to go into the leader stats folder. And then we're going to go into, we're going to find first child, gold. But now we're able to access this int value. And lastly, we're going to say that every time the player touches this, we are going to increment it by 1 gold. So we're going to do gold.value. We don't want to just say gold because gold itself is just an object inside of the Explorer. But we're actually trying to adjust the value of this gold, which is right here. So we're going to do gold.value is equal to itself, gold.value, plus 1. So it's simple. If we have 100 gold, it's going to say now your gold is equal to what it was before, which is 100, plus 1, which would equal 101. So let's go ahead and check out this script. We're going to press play again. Let's go ahead and touch this brick. Oh, look at that. Our gold's actually incrementing by a ton. And that's because, as we saw before, a bunch of body parts are touching this at once. This touched event is actually firing a lot, and it's giving us a lot of coins, as we can see. So what if we only want it to give us 1? Let's see how we can do that. There's actually a couple ways that we can do this, and depending on your use case scenario, that's going to depend on how you achieve this. But let's just say that we want it to be a competitive racing obby, and the first one to collect the coin is the only one that can collect that coin. So we can just go ahead and destroy the coin after. So we're just going to do simply coin destroy, and let's go ahead and click play and see what happens now. So we're going to collect the coin, and now it's destroyed, and we only collected 1. Perfect. So I hope now you understand how to create a leaderboard, and I hope I was able to give you some value in showing how you could create a coin that adds to that leaderboard value. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. I'm trying to just post relevant scripting tutorials, and I hope that my teaching style can resonate with as many as possible. Thanks for watching. Bye.